Welcome to Jason's School for the Poor Leader and Inept Manager. You have found yourself here today because you have proven yourself to lack key leadership skills in the workplace that is either jeopardizing your employment or failing to lead your organization to the next level. We're here to help you improve your leadership skills by taking you back to basics. In today's lesson, we are going to look at the situational leadership approach, which was developed by Hersey and Blanchard. Firstly, we will define the approach, before moving on to looking at the concept of maturity. We will then discuss task behavior versus relationship behavior and look at the leadership styles presented in the theory. Finally, we will put it all together and look at how the theory works. The situational leadership model was developed in 1969 by Paul Hersey and Ken Blanchard. The concept is based on the amount of direction and the amount of socio-emotional support a leader must provide, given the situation and level of maturity of the subordinate. The concept revolves around the idea that a leader must always remember to be flexible, as the situation demands. The theory works off the ideas that telling people what to do when they already know what to do irritates them. However, not telling poor performers what to do leads to confusion and failure. This model is becoming more and more appropriate and applicable today, given what we are learning about millennials and the generations to come. Maturity is defined in situational leadership as the willingness and ability of a person to take responsibility for directing his or her behavior. However, according to Hersey and Blanchard, maturity should be considered only in relation to a specific task to be performed. Psychological maturity is related to the willingness or motivation to do something. Individuals who have high psychological maturity in a particular area of responsibility think that responsibility is important and have self-confidence and good feelings about themselves and that aspect of the job. However, job maturity is related to the ability or competence to do something. Individuals who have high job maturity in a particular area of their work have knowledge, ability, and experience to do the tasks in that aspect of their job without direction from others. The situational approach to leadership asserts that there are 4 different combinations of maturity that an employee or a follower will have at any given time. The first is M1. This is where the follower is unable or insecure about their job task, and they are also unwilling. The job maturity is the first point, where the psychological maturity is the second. M2 is where the employee is unable to complete their task. However, they are willing to complete their task. This means that they have low job maturity, but high psychological maturity. The third combination is when the employee is able to complete their job task. However, they are unwilling to do so. Therefore, they have high job maturity, but low psychological maturity. And the final combination is M4. This is when the employee is able to complete the task, and they are also willing to complete the task. This employee or follower will have both high job maturity and high psychological maturity. We will now move on to how the leaders behave within the model. Task behavior is the extent to which a leader indicates in one-way communication what each follower is to do, as well as when, where, and how tasks are to be accomplished. Relationships behavior is the extent to which a leader engages in two-way communication by providing socio-emotional support, psychological strokes, and facilitating behaviours. The situational leadership approach suggests that there are 4 different combinations of task behavior and relationship behavior that leaders can use to help lead or manage different types of followers or subordinates. The first style is telling or directing. Now, this uses high task behavior and low relationship behavior and is suited for people with low confidence and high commitment. The next is selling or coaching. Now this is where leaders utilize high task and high relationship behaviors. This is for people with some competence, but they're lacking confidence or motivation. The third style is participating or supporting. This is for people who have competence but lack confidence or motivation. Now, this style requires leaders to use low task behavior but high relationship behavior. And the final style is delegating. Now, this is for people who have competence and they also have commitment. This is where managers need to use both low task behavior as well as low relationship behavior. Now, I understand that this might be all a little bit confusing and all very theoretical at this point in time, but we will shortly put it all together to show you how this model works in practice. According to Hersey and Blanchard, a leader should show constant direction and provide low socio-emotional support to a follower with low maturity relative to a particular job objective. So, for example, a new employee. As the level of maturity of the follower increases in terms of accomplishing a specific task, then the leader should begin to reduce task behavior and increase relationship behavior. So this means that they should reduce the level of direction towards the employee completing the task and increase the motivational and emotional support that they're providing that employee. This should continue until the individual reaches a moderate level of maturity. As the follower moves into an above average level of maturity, it becomes appropriate for the leader to decrease not only task behavior, but relationship behavior as well. At this point, the follower is not only mature in terms of performance, but the follower is also psychologically mature. So they're able to provide their own ongoing motivation. This chart here demonstrates the 4 different approaches that are contained in the theory. So down here we look at the motivational levels of the followers or subordinates or employees. So we start here when they're back at M1 when they're unable and unwilling. That under the theory, the leaders should be using the telling method of leadership. As they move to unable but willing, then they're able to move towards selling. Then we go to able but unwilling, which leads to participating. And then finally, we have able and winning, which leads to delegation. So as discussed before, the idea is that this process will lead all employees to the delegation level once their maturity improves. However, it is important to remember that this is very task specific, not just that employee in the entire role. For example, if you take an employee that at, say, a fast food restaurant such as McDonald's, you could start training them when they have such low maturity to take orders and whatnot, and you can go through this process until you can direct them just to work on service. However, it's task specific. Even though that employee has a high level of maturity with respect to that task, you could not necessarily ask that employee to go and do the ordering for the week. That employee, although having a high maturity level for serving, would have a very low maturity level for ordering inventory. Congratulations, class, on finishing today's lesson. Hopefully you can take what you've learned back to your organisations and improve your own leadership skills.